Hey guys, excuse me if I am kind of short with the intro because this is my fifth time trying to record this. Because every time I look at the camera, I'm like, ooh, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I wanted to hop on here today because today is July 7th. And so today, to the exact date, is 1 month away from the official launch of my debut novel, One More Time. And just kind of show the cover. Look how cute that is. Samantha Sanderson Marshall designed this for me, and I found her on Readsy, and she is such a doll. She is so amazing. She's such a great person. She was so great to work with, and clearly, like, her work is just beautiful. Clearly, I don't do a lot of recording on webcam, so you have to excuse me with like the whole like invertedness of everything. But just like beautiful that cover. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I also wanted to make this video because I wanted to make something to kind of like demonstrate how different my book was from like when I started writing it back in 2019 all the way up until like the official like finished thing. I'm going to read you a synopsis and kind of give you a breakdown of what it's about and all the characters, and so that we all are on the same page for the rest of this video. All right, I'll try and make it quick. From middle school until college, Lauren and Elizabeth met and fell in love in what felt like a blink of an eye, but were torn apart in a matter of days after their community college graduation. In 2023, to remain professional, the women agreed to try and be friends when they ran into each other at Elizabeth's new job that Lauren had already turned into a long-term career as an editor. However, despite the heart-wrenching breakup that haunts them still, and 5 years apart, old feelings between the two start to resurface. Knowing all that's at risk, their careers, their newly found friendship, and possible new romantic interest on their horizons, Lauren and Elizabeth try to ignore what they have, not to mention all the family troubles that keep Lauren and Elizabeth's lives busy and hectic. But the heart wants what it wants, and the women were never able to stay away from each other even as preteens and teens. But is it possible to try again? Try one more time. I had to finish reading that synopsis on my phone because this little stupid not for resale bar blocks the rest of the synopsis. And I didn't think to get myself an author's copy and just settle for a proof copy instead. That's fun. But yeah, that's the synopsis. And so, let's see, the main characters that we're following, my screen was black. The main characters that we're following, Lauren and Elizabeth. Lauren and Elizabeth. They are the main characters, and they're also each other's love interests, and they have their own POVs throughout the chapters and throughout the story. And we also have flashback chapters. So basically, we have one chapter. Sometimes you'll have one chapter that'll take place in present day, aka 2023, and then the next chapter or two may take place in 2012 or 2013 or 2014, all the way up until 2020, until like 2019, I believe. Yes, all the way up until 2019. And so it's very much like a exchanging of timelines sort of thing, and that was very much like I want to say like a last minute thing that I put in because originally this was going to be two separate books. And like I still think it should have been, but at the time I wanted to make it all one book, and so hopefully it'll work out. But yeah. And so this is mine. Lauren has a twin brother. His name is Lucas. Now Lucas is engaged to Lauren's childhood best friend and Elizabeth's ex-best friend, Haley. Now, the reason why Haley and Elizabeth are no longer friends has very much to do with the breakup between Lauren and Elizabeth and like all of things that went down after that and before. And so Lucas and Haley are engaged, and they're like their main side characters essentially. Like you see them a lot throughout the story, and they do play vital roles in the plot. And so I do call them like main side characters in a way. And so Lauren and Lucas were raised by their grandparents, Carter and Alice. At the beginning of the story, Carter is no longer with us. That is not a spoiler. that gets revealed like within the first like couple chapters in the present day. Now, how he dies, that is kind of a spoiler, and like the everything, the catalyst of all that, I am going to lead up to people to read about. And and yeah. And they are pretty decently close with their father, but they're estranged from their mother due to their mother abandoning them at her parents' house, their grandparents' house when they were babies. And they've been raised by Alice and Carter ever since. Now, Elizabeth has an older sister. Her name's Jen, aka Jennifer, but the whole thing we just call her Jen. And she and Elizabeth were raised by their parents, but their parents weren't always good people or like very loving or sticking up for them or anything of that sort. And so they just don't speak to their parents anymore. They really, the only family they have is each other. And Jen also, her soon to be ex husband Scott, much to Elizabeth's dismay. And I I'm just gonna say this though, I have like no real hate for Scott just because like yeah, I made him do something awful, but he's not a terrible person. He just like did something bad and he owned up to it. He's like, yeah, I did that. I'm so sorry. Let's get divorced. Wait, let's pause the divorce because Jen is pregnant throughout like 80% of this book. She gives birth like in the third act. But yeah, and so Jen is also one of the main side characters. She also plays a big part in the plot, in furthering the plot, and especially furthering Elizabeth's growth. And the pregnancy also helps a lot, but like I just that's my own little flair because I also want to like write like maybe write a separate book for Jen and a separate book for Lucas and Haley, but that's a whole other video. And what inspired this version of the book was a mashup between Cornelia Street by Taylor Swift and You're Losing Me. Cornelia Street is from Taylor Swift's Lover album. That's one of my favorite albums she has, and that's one of my favorite songs. And You're Losing Me is from her album Midnights. And that when I first heard that song, it like broke me. But like hearing the mashup, it encapsulated what I see as second chance romance is that in the beginning there's these flashes of like this is gonna last forever, I can't imagine being with anyone else but you, and then on the flip side, and then like you know how it ends, how the first initial version of their love story is going. I found that very sad, and I saw that especially in this book, especially when like between chapters of like being in the present and then switching it to the past and having that whole thing. And this version of the book, the main thing of this is that Haley and Lucas are getting married. Their wedding is coming very, very soon, and Lauren is helping them plan it. And that's when Lauren and Elizabeth run into each other. And this is all told through Elizabeth's point of view. And this is how she finds out her two ex best friends are getting married. And at first, she's elated, she's so excited. And then remembering we're not friends, we're not talking, I'm not invited. Okay, this is actually pretty sad. And yeah, so the original version of this book had, and I always wanted this to be a sapphic romance. Always, that was always my intention with it. Mostly because when I first started writing this, I had finally, I had always been out. Like I've always told people I was bisexual since I was like 14. I've known it for well over 11 years. Like right now, I've known it for 11 years, but it wasn't until I was 20 that I finally felt comfortable enough to step into that and be like, yes, this is who I am, and I am fighting tooth and nail for this. I don't know why at 20, I just like that's just when I grew a pair. I guess that's when I grew a spine for myself, you know? Better late than never though. I was heavily inspired by the song Betty. Um and I always knew I wanted to write this like kind of love triangle romance sort of thing where there's two women, there's it's all women involved, and them like the two main ones trying to get together, but like the third person involved not being the villain. Like that was always really important to me. Like in love triangles, especially in heterosexual love triangles, the third person involved that caused the love triangle in the first place is always pinned as a bad person, especially if like there's been some sort of like cheating involved. Now I'm gonna say this: I do not condone cheating at all. Like, if you are in an abusive relationship and you're flirting with someone else, like, that's a whole other discussion to have. But if you are just drifting apart, or like you're perfectly happy, but then you just randomly start cheating on your person, then like that's awful. That's just like no excuse, bad behavior, right? But because the song of the nature was forgive me for cheating on you, and I kind of wanted to have like this love triangle thing where the two people that fell out of love got back together and no one chose like the third person, right? And so I um I took Betty, and like at this point it was very clear that this book was inspired by that song. I took that and I ran with it. And I only made it to like the second act. I mean halfway through the second act before I realized I don't know how to end this. That isn't the same way this. So I kind of dropped it a couple of months. And then I picked it back up after like a month or so. This was around the time when my job started calling people saying that they were not going to be open for a long time, and we that not to come into work for up until called otherwise. And so I was literally stuck in the house. I had nothing else to do, and so I picked up my computer back up again, and I tried to write this again, but I changed a lot. It stopped being kind of it was still somewhat related to Betty, just because I kept that nickname for Elizabeth to have to be Betty, just because I thought that was really cute that Lauren would call her that occasionally, and that would be like her little nickname for her. But yeah, I keep losing track. And then while I was writing my second draft at this point, I had changed it because like the third person, Georgia, I had changed it to where she's more of a side character. In the official version, she is very much deeply a side character. Like she sometimes like there is a flirty connection between her and Lauren for a while, and I did want to introduce that just to add in like some drama without like it being unnecessary, you know? And so Georgia in this version, she is a baker, when in the first version, she was basically the reason why these didn't get together right away or like anytime soon. And I wouldn't say in this version she is the reason they didn't get together anytime soon. I was just it's just more of like giving having Lauren have another option other than Elizabeth at this point. But yeah. And what changed in the second version a lot was I because like in the first version they were seniors in high school. They were 17. At this point I was 20, so it was only like a few years ago when I was their age. And so the older I got, the more their ages changed. And so in the second version, I made them closer to my age. I made them 21, and I was just shy of turning 20 if I not had already turned 20, newly 21 at this point. And no, I was newly 21. Yeah, because I remember I had my first legal drink before lockdown. And so yeah, I keep saying that. And made them closer to my age, and that changed a lot. I made them college students, and so at the time I was also in college. I was in community college at this point, and so that changed a lot. And then I changed that Elizabeth had a sticker company that she was running, that she had ran since high school, that Lauren was involved with, but like she made her sign a thing after they broke up saying that she was going to be involved, but would still get like money she was owed for the design she did and all that stuff. And that changed like a big chunk of the plot. And the legal trouble is like why they even were brought to get back together in the first place, and why they was so much animosity between them, other than how the nature of how they broke up. And the nature of how they broke up in this version was also vastly different. And now I'm not going to say it because that version in draft 2 is in the official version as well, and so I'm not going to say it just because I want people to read that and like, oh, I see why there's so much anxiety around like seeing this person every day, you know? Anyway. Anyway, and Haley was always in these versions, but she became more and more prominent the more I wrote her. And she only became more and more prominent the more I wrote her because I fell in love with the character I made for her. And she turned into like this very much like in the background, only coming occasionally best friend to she's one of like she's practically one of the main characters and she's like in love she's like openly in love with her best friend's brother. Whereas in the second version, it was very much like a surprise to everybody that they're together. Whereas in the third version, it was like no doubt they're together, right? So in the second version, it was a lot more focused on the business side of things rather than their romance and like what happened between them. And they don't get together in the second version until like at the very end of the book. Very more much more of like a traditional romance book situation. Personally, I don't really like when characters get together at the very end of the book and you don't get to see them much as a couple, even like barely even in the epilogue, because in most romance books in the epilogue they're married and they have kids or like they want to get married or whatever, you know? And like no shame to anyone who wants that, obviously, but it's just more of like I wanted to see them before this. You know, I wanted to see them before they had kids and settled down and had a whole life, you know, and see how they operated. But that's me. That's just me. And in the third version, I changed it to Elizabeth has lost the business that she invested so much money in and runs into Lauren at this coffee shop on her way to her new job where Lauren also has working. And and they don't know at the time. They don't know it until they run into each other and they're just like, ooh, okay, so you're the new person. You're my boss. So that's a whole fun little thing. And I'm messy, and so I'm not, but like people say I'm messy comparatively. And so I thought like doing that was like perfect, perfect amount of drama. Like, yes, this will bring in just the right amount of tension and like reason to see each other every day. And I love it. You know, because otherwise, like any other reason for them to keep running to each other, and it because like this takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So in a city as big as Tulsa, for them to keep running into each other every day is like very unrealistic. And so in this third version, I had them like try to be friends again, so like there wouldn't be any like tension. And then like I also added in that Lauren's boss is also like kind of head of HR because it's publishing company. It's a very small, like very new publishing company, and so like people have to wear a lot of hats, right? So Lauren, co-head editor, is also head of the HR department because of that until they can get an HR person. In earlier versions of this draft, I had Lauren have a boyfriend, and his name was Roman, and he was just a meathead. He was very much like a himbo type guy, but I cut him out entirely just because I didn't want him to be seen as a villain in the eyes of the reader. Like, oh, you're the reason why they didn't get together in this chapter because like Lauren wanted to stay true to you, and it's kind of like, no. And I also didn't want people to like see it as like, oh, she didn't get with Roman because he's a terrible person off screen. It's like he's not. He's just not the right person for her. And so I just took him out entirely just to try and avoid all that, just because I have such an attachment. Like I have attachment to all these characters, clearly. Like you spend so much time with them and developing them, like how can you not be attached to them in some way, right? And this is the reason why when I start writing fantasy again and I have to kill characters off, this is why I'll be recording myself crying. Like this is it. And yeah. And so in the final version, Lauren does not have a boyfriend on screen, but she has but like I don't know if I mentioned it in the in this version or not, but she has had boyfriends and like one night stands since Elizabeth. While Elizabeth was in a relationship with Lauren, and I don't think I kept it in this version, but in the second version, Elizabeth was in a horrid affair with her therapist. Yeah, and it did not end well, and it was actually a very abusive relationship. Now, that is not my feelings on therapy. I have actually just started therapy myself, and so that's not my feelings on therapy. It's just more of like another thing to add on. But while I was reading the second version and like thinking this would be the final version, I realized there's so much other plot going on that's distracting from the romance. Like it started to become more of a fiction novel, like general fiction than romance. And so I had to cut a lot of stuff. And in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I did, you know, because if I kept that therapist character, I would probably would have jumped through the screen just to kill her. Like she pissed me off. That's how I know I probably make realistic characters, was when I'm reading about them. It's like, God, I hate you and you're not even real and I made you up. Like, I know everything there is to know about you and I hate you. And so I take that as a great compliment. Excuse me, delicious. Anyway, so weird. Anyway, but yeah, there's been a lot of changes since the second version. Like, the second version was a lot shorter. It was 65,000 words. This version is like 85,000 words. Oh, sorry, 83,000. I had to delete a couple chapters, so it's 83,000 words long. And so, yeah, it's a lot longer, but I like it because it gives them time to like come together and like finally like let go of this restraint they have of like screw it, let's throw it to the wind, let's see what happens. And yeah, a lot has changed since the start of this. And I I honestly, this entire video, I just wanted to like take down that picture behind me right there and just make like a murder board on my wall, just to show you like physically of how much all of these people have changed, like, and what's all changed and all that stuff. And originally in the second version, Haley's wedding happened off screen. It wasn't like a whole thing, but I wanted to add drama between like Haley, Lucas, and this other girl, because I do want to write about their romance as well, about Haley and Lucas's romance, especially when they also took a break. They also took a break around the same time that Lauren and Elizabeth broke up. Yeah, I'm just so excited, and I really hope that this video at the end of the day makes sense to other people, because to me right now it doesn't really make any sense. I feel like it would make more sense with visual aids, and if I figure out how to do that in editing, hopefully I'll just cut this part out, and if not, then like clearly I'll keep it in. But yeah, that's all that's different in One More Time, and I am actually working on other work in progress too. I and one is sapphic. It's a paranormal sapphic romance again, but it's gonna be a lot more explicit. And the other one is a like witch boy romance, which is I'm very excited about too. But yeah, yeah, and I'm so excited. So just go over again. One More Time is coming out August 7th, directly a month from now, and I'm so excited. And I've already have a review, like a peer review from it, and they rated a 3 out of 5, which, like, in my opinion, best case scenario, especially for this being my debut novel. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. It's available on Amazon. Physical book is still up for grabs, and Kindle version is for pre-order, but you'll only need to wait like a month or less. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully next time I make a video, it'll be a lot more cohesive and planned, but all right. I will catch you guys next time, hopefully in the near future.